Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Packernet podcast. I am your host and resident panelist, as always, Ryan Schlipp. Check us out online, packernet.com. Find me on Twitter, pack_data. So today we are going to, again, take a look at the Arizona Cardinals, this time more as a team and less so as looking at the individual rosters, although there are some reports, injury reports and whatnot that we have to take into account, so we'll do that. There is some stuff that I'd like to talk about, but I think that this is going to take some time, so let's not. All right, so first of all, Arizona Cardinals, and we'll go over their coaching staff a little bit more in the future here. But in short, Jonathan Gannon, head coach, Drew Petzing is the offensive coordinator, and Nick Rallis is the defensive coordinator. Right now, in terms of points, their offense is 20th. Their defense ranks 14th in yards. It's 22nd and 24th. Looking a little bit more at their offense, 16th in turnovers, so pretty run-of-the-mill. 10th in passing attempts, 22nd in rushing attempts, so they tend to be a little bit more of a passing team than a rushing team. However, despite being 10th in attempts, they're 26th in yards, 22nd in touchdowns, 16th in interceptions, 28th in net yards per attempt, just 5.2 yards. For rushing, they're 22nd in attempts, but 17th in yards, 16th in touchdowns, 13th in yards per attempt at 4.6. They also rank relatively high in average time per drive at 3 minutes, 8 seconds, and plays per drive, they're 8th. I don't know if I said they're 5th in time per drive, 8th in plays per drive at 6.38. So, that's the first thing that kind of makes me a little nervous is what the Cincinnati Bengals did was drag out these really long drives. Whether they're successful or not, or score or not, or whatever, if our defense is allowing those kinds of things, and that's what they end up doing to a lot of other people, that could end up being, again, the score is ultimately the most important, but we can't score if they have the ball. And the more we allow these long drives, the more it's going to drain our defense, the more likely it is over time they end up scoring. And I know there's some stats floating around out there. I don't remember exactly what it is, but we have one of the best defenses in football in the first, second, and third quarter, and I think we're dead last in the fourth quarter in terms of scoring. So, obviously, that's an issue that hopefully can get corrected. Defensively, they're 13th in turnovers, 30th in attempts, meaning people don't pass on them nearly as much as they run against them. I don't know if that's just a happens to be kind of thing. Maybe it's just because they get up against them, although that doesn't seem to be the case really in any of these games. But 27th in yards, 5th in touchdowns, 11th in interceptions, 12th in net yards per attempt against them. 13th in rushing attempts, 13th in yards, 16th in touchdowns, 15th in yards per attempt at 4.2, so dead average across the board. Starting field position, they are the 5th best. Time allowed per drive is just 2.44 seconds, which is the 8th best. However, 27th in plays per drive. How that works, I'm not entirely sure, but it's a thing. If we look at their record at first glance, it looks very promising. They are 2-4. Which is great, aside from the fact that all these good teams keep losing to 2-win teams. It's a very weird thing, including the Steelers losing to the Cincinnati Bengals. And also, they won their first 2 games and lost their last 4. And also, their first 2 game wins came against the Saints and Panthers. So everything is like, holy crap. I mean, they've lost 4 in a row. Their only 2 wins came against terrible teams. Like, everything's wonderful here. There's an issue. Number 1, 3 of the 4 teams that they lost against, minus the Tennessee Titans, which is pretty embarrassing, are seemingly very good teams. The 49ers, they lost, are a playoff team for sure. The Seahawks are a playoff team with apparently an MVP caliber quarterback right now. And the Indianapolis Colts might somehow be the best team in football. The other thing that's not good about this is that every loss has been very, very, very close. In fact, in their 4 losses, they lost by a combined 9 points in 4 losses. They lost to the 49ers on the road by 1 single point. They lost to the Seahawks by 3 points. They lost to the Titans, which is embarrassing, but it was a 1-point loss. They lost to the Colts by just 4 points. They have not been blown out by anybody. The Packers are 6.5-point favorites. In order to meet or exceed that expectation, they would have to do what the Colts, the Seahawks, and the 49ers could not do. And if you're curious how much Kyler Murray contributed to this, Kyler played in the first 5 games, or I should say 4.5 games. Jacoby just Indy, and then it was 5 games, and Jacoby played 1. He didn't really come in very much for Tennessee. Looking at DVOA to give us a little bit more of a contextualized view of how quote-unquote good they are. Arizona overall is negative 3.4%, so pretty close to average, slightly below average. They currently rank 18th, which tracks with that. Last week they were ranked 19th, so they did climb 1 spot. Their offensive DVOA is minus 8.4%, which ranks 23rd. Their defensive DVOA is minus 4.6. Remember, minus is good for defense. So they're about 5% better than average, and they rank 13th on defense. Their weighted DVOA, which is a little early for that, but we're kind of getting into that point. Weighted meaning looking a little bit more recent than in the past. They're at 3.2%, so almost exactly the same. So they don't seem to be getting much better or worse. It is slightly better, but it's about the same. So, this is not a bad team. This is not a good team. This is a pretty average, run-of-the-mill football team. They've played everybody close. So, everything that I've been saying, a lot of other people have been saying of, don't sit here and say we need to blow this team out or we need to do this, that, or the other. This is a quality football team with some good players, and, their record is not what you want it to be, but a couple field goals here and there, and they could be borderline undefeated this year, and against some really good teams. And again, especially on the road where the Packers have had real serious struggles, we really just need them to show up. We need them to play solid football. I'm not asking for what a lot of people are saying, which is I need 4 solid quarters from offense, defense, and special. I mean, that'd be nice. It's pretty rare to find any team that is playing really well for 4 quarters in all 3 phases of the game. So mistakes are going to happen. The team that's able to limit the mistakes the most, probably has the best chance of winning the game. So discipline is going to be important. And just freaking energy, man. Just don't play worse than usual. I think maybe that's my thought more so than the opposite, which is I need to see massive growth. We can't see regression. We can't keep doing this thing where we go on the road and we just don't even recognize this team anymore. The offensive line can't block at all. Jordan's under constant duress. He's making panic decisions. He's throwing interceptions. The defense can't do anything. Guys, I think if you don't take a step and you played like you did last week, there's a good chance you win. It's going to be a battle. I'd love for you to really step into it and just be the team that we all know you can be. I saw PFF just said something similar, something to the effect of like they're a really frustrating team because they should be so much better than this. And I think we all know that, and I think that's a lot of the frustration that a lot of people have because we saw it the first couple weeks of the season. And so, we do need to start stepping into that, but you absolutely can't do this thing where you go on the road and suddenly you fall apart. Because they're not this horrible, terrible team that you can just roll up and do whatever you want to. They're more than capable of beating teams. They're on the ropes. They want to be in the playoffs. They want to be like all these other 2-win teams that are upsetting all these other 1-loss teams. And I don't want the Packers to be just another victim of that. It's been a freaking epidemic. So that is the hope, and that is a brief overview statistically. Why don't we take a break? We'll look at some of their schematics and whatnot, how they like to play, and all that good stuff. By the way, I mentioned how very close these games have been for them. Apparently, they are the first team in NFL history to lose 3 straight games on walk-off scores in the final seconds. So very unlucky is one way to look at this. Do not look at their 2-win record because when you kind of normalize the coin flip games, and I think their wins have been, let me look here. I think their wins have been coin flips too. There was a 5-point win against Carolina and a 7-point win against the Saints, which is still 1 score. I mean, I guess that pushes them to 3-3 if you kind of normalize these as being just complete luck of the draw games. I'm not sure exactly what point you do that, but at best you would grant them the win against the Saints, and then it's still it moves it to 3.5 wins. But again, that's I mean, right across the board. They're an average team. They're a 3-3 team. They're whatever. The issue is just they're not closers. You know what I mean? We've seen this before too. I remember the Bears a few years ago. Just they kept losing in the final moments of games. We've also seen the flip side of that. The Vikings have had the opposite effect where they were able to consistently win. So first off, the head coach. I mean, Jonathan Gannon, he's been there for 3 years, or this is his third year or whatever. This is obviously a breaking point kind of a moment. I mean, if the season continues this way, he has a 14-26 overall record, currently 2-4 in 2025. PFF already put him, prior to this season, number 7 on the hot seat list. I would guess if they were to redo that, he's probably moving up those rankings. Gannon's history, by the way, as a defensive coordinator, he was on the Eagles team in 2022. Kind of an unusual guy. Apparently, he has famously said no playbook and keeps all the schemes, quote-unquote, in my brain. I'm guessing there's a playbook somewhere, but it's a thing he says. I don't know. The idea being he wants to emphasize adaptability over rigid systems. His signature quote, "Experience is not synonymous with knowledge," reflects his comfort with youth and innovation. Whatever, bro. The pressure that he's got and the pressure that he's under and the fact that he's likely on the road to getting fired at this point ultimately culminated into what we saw where he confronted running back Amari DiMarcado, kind of pushed him or hit him or whatever. Cardinals fined him $100,000 for doing it. He apologized, said, sorry, the moment got the better of me, but it kind of just goes to show where the team is at right now, where the coach is at. He's kind of seeing the writing on the wall here, especially when you lose by such small margins. You realize, man, I could be here with a winning record and doing all this stuff, but I got guys freaking fumbling the ball out of the end zone because they can't cross the goal line before they flip the ball in the air like idiots. These guys are going to get me fired. So yeah, you got a little pissy about it. Otherwise, they do have, across the board, a pretty young coaching staff. The offensive coordinator, Drew Petzing, is 37 years old. Defensive coordinator, Nick Rallis, is 31. He's the youngest in the NFL. He was hired when he was 29, which is super crazy. Even special teams coordinator, Jeff Rogers, is just 44, which is still relatively young. The average age of the coordinators is 34 years old. Both of these coordinators have worked with Gannon previously. Petzing spent 4 years with Gannon in Minnesota from 2014 to 2017. Rallis was Gannon's linebackers coach in Philadelphia 21 and 22. So they're young, they're sort of up and coming, and there's that sort of continuity that they'll be able to employ Gannon's vision. Offensive coordinator Drew Petzing's role has been particularly scrutinized. He actually was awarded an interview with the Chicago Bears for head coach, just to give you an idea of how up and coming he really is. Obviously didn't get that job, but still, it kind of shows you where he was at. Now he's under fire for being too predictable and underutilizing the weapons that he's got. Through week 5, Marvin Harrison had just an 18.8% target rate, which is 104th among qualifying receivers. So a lot of Packer fans upset about Golden's target rate so far. Very similar situation over there where everybody's very upset. We got this weapon. He's very good. What the heck are we doing? Fans apparently launched a social media campaign calling for Petzing's firing even during the team's 2-0 start. The loss of offensive line coach Clayton Adams to Dallas as their offensive coordinator has been blamed for some of the 2025 struggles, though Petzing must prove he's not, quote-unquote, the limiting factor in an offense with elite talent. As for Nick Rallis, his whole thing is bringing motor and violence. Adaptability and explosiveness are his core components. There have been some massive improvements, so he's getting a lot more grace because he was really liked when he came in. A lot of changes. They jumped from dead last in DVOA in 2023 to 14th in 2024. So again, there's a little bit of like, we like this guy, but also you're going to have to do better than this, bro. He brings a unique quarters-based coverage system with 3 safety alignments, which creates one of the NFL's most complex schemes. He actually ranks 4th in coverage disguise. Owner Michael Bidwell invested over $100 million in defensive free agents for 2025, so there is no longer, presumably, a talent excuse. So in other words, it's thank you for getting us out of dead last as far as defense. We gotta start seeing something here, though. 14th is not exactly where we need to be. And again, as of now, which is relatively early, they haven't really improved. If anything, they've gone backwards. Apparently, if you look at EPA as opposed to DVOA, the numbers are much worse. So there's, when things are kind of going sideways, you might start to see some people come out and go, I don't know if he's so good. Look at this, look at that. And again, when you look at the record and everything, everyone starts doing an accounting. Everyone starts going through with a fine-tooth comb and finding all the little problems that everybody has. So as of right now, not necessarily living up to expectations because they're not really taking that next leap. Cardinals operate a West Coast-influenced run-base offensive scheme. This is a dramatic departure from Cliff Kingsbury, who has his air raid system. We talked about Cliff Kingsbury. Whew. It's just 3 words. Cliff Kingsbury, right? We talked about him because we went up against him. And so this is a very, not a different thing in terms of like what we're used to in the NFL. It's not that, but it's a very big departure in terms of going from air raid to this more West Coast offense. Under Petzing, the Cardinals increased their under center snaps from 10.6% from 2019 to 2022 to up to 41.4%, 10 to 41. They've decreased their shotgun usage from 89.3% to around 58.6% and reintroduced traditional huddles after 4 years of no huddle offense. The philosophy prioritizes being top 5 in run play percentage, with Petzing believing all top 5 teams in rushing make the playoffs. This is what I don't like about this. I mean, this is where I understand now why coaches don't like statistics, because they don't know how to use them. They're so stupid. Look, there is this thing that people do where they identify a thing that correlates and they assume causation. This is my whole issue that I have with the explosive play thing. Teams that are successful happen to be high in explosive plays. Therefore, if we shoot for explosive plays all the time, we'll be successful too. Not necessarily, no. Well, teams that run the ball, that are top 5 in running the ball, are the best teams in football, so we need to be top 5 in running the ball. Maybe there are other things that go along with being a very good team, like, when you blow out a team and in the fourth quarter you do nothing but run the ball, things like that. It's not to say that it's not important and it doesn't contribute and whatever. I mean, teams like that probably are better at balancing and establishing the run and all that kind of stuff so that they can set up the pass. But it's so stupid to look at a single stat like that and say, oh, everybody that's top 5 in running is going to the playoffs. So if we can just run all the time, then we'll go to the playoffs. No, that's not how that freaking works, dude. Jeez, it just freaking annoys me. Maybe it's the other way around. Maybe if you can learn to be a good football team, you will end up. In other words, one is a byproduct of the other, not the other way around. We're looking at things in reverse all the time. Let's look at the byproduct of a good team and then do that byproduct. I know I don't need to explain this to you, but I'm annoyed and I like analogies. It would be like, seeing as how we're talking about byproducts, if we looked at a company and they made billions of dollars and we noticed that as a result, they, of producing their thing, they produce chemical waste. All of these companies that are billion-dollar companies produce chemical waste. So if we can produce chemical waste, then we'll be rich too. No, dude, you have to produce the product. The chemical waste is a byproduct of the thing, which is being good at something. You should not come in and just say, I just arbitrarily want to be top 5 in running because everybody else that does it is good. Whatever, dude. The system's foundation relies heavily on 12 personnel. It's getting repetitive. A lot of teams are doing a lot of similar things, slight variations, but a lot of this, 12 personnel. Packers were kind of on the forefront of that a little bit. I know Shanahan has always been kind of that sort of a guy, but we started changing our offense to much heavier 12 personnel type stuff, even a little 22. We got all excited about that 2 running back thing. Haven't seen it as much, but I know that was a fun little ditty. 12 and 13 personnel. Again, 3 tight ends. Everybody wants to be big and heavy and strong and all that. No team in 2024 used 13 personnel more than Arizona. It creates a physical, multiple look offense that uses tight ends as extensions of the offensive line, setting up a steady diet of RPOs and play action passes, which makes sense when you consider the quarterback. The Cardinals carried 4 tight ends on their initial 53-man roster to support this philosophy, which makes sense. If you're going to need 3 on the field, you need at least 4 to be a single backup, or your entire philosophy crumbles. They've got their top-tier pass-catching tight end in Trey McBride. He is sort of the centerpiece. We talked a little bit about him when we went over the players and whatnot, and he is certainly a centerpiece of the offense. He can align outside, in line, or in even the backfield. The system produced some fantastic results, 2,451 rushing yards, 7th in the NFL, 5.3 yards per carry, 2nd in the NFL. And through the first 4 weeks, at least, this was observed that they were at 2.4 yards before contact, which is outstanding. That was number 1 in the NFL at the time. I'm not sure what they ended with, but to give you an idea of just how powerful the blocking was, the rushing was, everything. They're very good at it. Cardinals joined Baltimore as the only team to average 5+ yards per carry, accumulating 4,816 rush yards over 2023 to 2024, which is 3rd in the NFL. James Conner rushed for back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. Trey McBride recorded 111 receptions, 4th most by a tight end in NFL history, and 1,146 yards. Kyler added 573 rushing yards and 7.3 yards per attempt. The offensive line earned the 4th highest pass protection grade in the NFL. However, that was 2024, this is 2025. It has not gone well. Through their 6 games, the offense ranks 24th in yards. We kind of went through this, but it's pertinent. 27th in passing yards, and 19th through 21st in scoring. I don't remember exactly where they're pinned at right this second. The rushing attack dropped from elite to merely average, 113.2 yards per game and 4.6 yards per carry, a dramatic decline from 2024's 5.3 yards per carry. The passing efficiency remains concerning, with Murray averaging just 6.2 yards per attempt and completing 66.5% of passes while throwing 8 touchdowns, 4 interceptions in 5 games before his Week 6 injury. And that's something I'm going to go ahead and pause after we get through this so that I can see the latest. I've seen some of the news on the injury report front so far, but I want to wait until the official injury report so we can make sure we get that down right. Obviously, that's going to be a massive thing. I stand by the fact that I would rather not see Kyler. It's not that I think Kyler is massively elite compared to Jacoby, but as I said, I think the play style is different. We've struggled with guys getting the ball out super quick. Kyler has been getting the ball out quicker. He obviously is much more of a rushing threat when it comes to pressures and whatnot. Jacoby has been standing in the pocket. He's been holding the ball quite a bit longer. Doesn't have the same mobility, obviously. That's my preference, but we'll have to see how it goes. The main catastrophic injury we've already talked about when it comes to the rushing attack. They don't just have one guy on IR, they have 2. James Conner suffered a season-ending foot injury in Week 3, eliminating the 1,000-yard rusher who served as the offense's emotional leader. Backup Trey Benson suffered a knee injury requiring meniscus surgery in Week 4, placing him on IR for 4 to 6 weeks. They also lost multiple tight ends, which, even though Tip Ryman or whatever and Travis Vokalek are not household names, remember, when your team is based around this 3 tight end kind of a thing, at least, doing it a lot, and you lose 2 guys, it becomes a problem. In fact, it forced the Cardinals to use backup offensive lineman Kelvin Beachum as an eligible tight end blocker in 13 personnel packages, which I actually saw that it was very weird. I saw Kelvin Beachum, and I was looking at his stats, trying to see where he lined up, and there's the, I think they call it ITE or something. I forget what PFF calls it, but it's basically outside of, you're outside of the tackle. So that explains that situation. The running back room now relies on Michael Carter and practice squad elevations, completely decimating the scheme's foundation, which, again, I had kind of mentioned it seemed odd when you look at their the breakup of passing and running. Remember, this is primarily supposed to be a rushing attack. They want to be top 5 in rushing. They're 22nd in rushing attempts and 10th in passing. So they're certainly not able to do what it is they want to do. Formation preferences remain consistent with the philosophy: 12 personnel as the primary package, 13 in short yardage and goal line situations, and 11 personnel for obvious passing situations. The Cardinals employ heavy pre-snap motion to create defensive conflicts, multiple shifts and personnel substitutions to disguise intentions, and boost and waggle off play action to create space. However, play calling has become predictable. The Week 5 loss to Tennessee featured a criticized run call on 3rd and 8 late in the game instead of trusting Kyler Murray. Red zone efficiency represents the offense's most glaring weakness, with approximately 14% touchdown conversion in the early 2025 season. Third down conversion sits at 43.9%, below league average. The lack of explosive passing plays remains troubling. Murray's average depth of target in 2024 was 6.9 yards, 31st in the NFL, with only 3 completions of 40-plus yards all season. He currently has 600-plus consecutive passes without a 50-yard gain, the longest active streak in the NFL. This dink-and-dunk approach, combined with 41 offensive penalties in 2024, limits the ceiling of an offense that should be dynamic. The 2025 personnel crisis has exposed how scheme-dependent this system is. Without the physical running game to set up play action, the offense becomes one-dimensional and predictable. Petzing must find a way to manufacture explosiveness through scheme rather than relying on personnel that's no longer available. Why don't we take a break right here? We'll come back and kind of dig in a little bit deeper on their defense, a little bit of a closing overview, and then again we'll end with sort of the latest on the injury report. We'll be right back. All right, back to defense. Nick Rallis runs one of the NFL's most distinctive defensive systems, a 3-4 base with hybrid elements best described as Fangio adjacent, but with significant departures from traditional Vic Fangio principles. The signature feature is a 3-safety alignment that utilizes all-pro Budda Baker as a versatile chess piece, who morphs between box defender, deep safety, and blitzer. The system emphasizes quarters, cover 4, coverage rather than Fangio's traditional cover 6, cover 8 preferences. With Arizona leading the NFL at 30% quarters usage in 2023, the scheme features 5-man fronts for defensive flexibility, pattern matching principles rather than pure man or zone, and extensive post-snap rotation to confuse quarterbacks. The coverage disguise elements ranks 4th in the NFL, creating significant pre-snap confusion. Baker aligns in box, slot, and deep safety positions on different plays. Nickel corner Garrett Williams, 82 PFF grade in 2024, third among all corners, can show box or deep. The system uses delayed blitzes from safety and slot positions, zone-to-man conversion based on route concepts, and bracket coverages on elite receivers. This complexity forces quarterbacks into delayed decision-making and check-down tendencies. This is what we got to get Hafley doing, dude. We just need a guy to think for a second, have to pause and be like, oh, wait a minute, what's going on here? The 2025 statistical profile reveals a defense that performs spectacularly in some areas while failing miserably in others. Their red zone touchdown rate sits at 25%. Third down defense allows just 35.7% conversion rate, strong at getting off the field. However, pass defense yardage ranks 29th, suggesting a bend-don't-break philosophy that allows chunk plays but tightens in scoring positions. There is a slight discrepancy there, I suppose, in terms of that, but it's pretty even across the board, I would say, in terms of if you just look at yards per attempt, net yards per attempt, and then points scored. The evolution of Rallis shows dramatic year-over-year improvement in scheme sophistication. In 2023, year 1, the defense finished dead last in DVOA with a vanilla approach dictated by talent limitations. The unit ranked second to last in points per game, 26.8, and had 44% of the opposing drives result in scores, second worst. In 2024, year 2, the defense jumped to 14th in DVOA, a massive improvement. Blitz rate increased to 31.8%, which was 7th in the NFL, Coverage disguises ranked 4th, and the unit recorded 41 sacks, 13th in the NFL. Over the final 11 games of 2024, Arizona ranked 4th in points per game at 19.6, allowed the fewest total touchdowns and passing touchdowns in weeks 7 through 8, and finished top 10 in sacks, forced fumbles, total defense, and pass defense. The 2025 offseason saw a massive talent infusion. Here we go. Who's at my front door? Anywho, massive talent infusion to address the pass rush deficiency. They signed Josh Sweat to a 4-year, $76.4 million contract. He's averaged a 12.8% pressure rate and 8.3 sacks over his last 4 seasons with the Eagles. They brought back ageless veteran Calais Campbell, which is a great way to put it, from Miami, 85.9 PFF run defense grade. Added nose tackle Dalvin Tomlinson from Cleveland. We kind of talked about him. He's certainly declining to a pretty high degree, but I understand the thought process, I guess. 11.8% QB pressure rate in 2024, 11th among defensive interiors. And they drafted Walter Nolan in the first round from Ole Miss. 6 of 7 2025 draft picks were defense. Owner Michael Bidwell invested over $100 million in defensive upgrades, eliminating anti excuse, as we already talked about. However, concerning disconnects persist, which can happen a lot when you just bring in a pile of random people. You can't necessarily expect immediate cohesion, especially when the average age is about 53 years old. It's like a classic Vikings thing. Let's go out and get a bunch of really old guys who have been good in the past and see how it goes. Despite ranking 7th in blitz rate in 2024, the Cardinals ranked 25th in pressure rate, a troubling gap between aggression and effectiveness. The pass rush production ranked 24th per Pro Football Focus, suggesting sacks came from more coverage than actual pressure generation. The run defense allowed 4.7 yards per carry to running backs, 28th in the NFL, and most yards after contact per carry at 3.6 in 2024. The defense forced only 9 interceptions, which was 24th, failing to create takeaways needed to flip field position. The linebacker situation presents a significant concern. The unit ranked 28th in PFF grade 2024, and Arizona lost Kazir White in free agency. Replacements Akeem Davis-Gaither and Michael Walker are unproven as full-time starters, and rookie Cody Simon, 4th-round pick out of Ohio State, is still developing. The secondary features starting corners Max Melton and Will Johnson, who was a 2nd-round pick out of Michigan, who we talked about, with injuries to Sean Murphy-Bunting and starting Starling Thomas exposing depth concerns. The most damning statistic: the Cardinals' defense has allowed scores with under 5 minutes remaining in every game this season and surrendered scores on 11 of 16 fourth-quarter drives since Week 2. The bend-but-don't-break philosophy becomes passive at critical moments, allowing teams to march 70-plus yards in the final 2 minutes repeatedly. This execution failure in crunch time transforms an elite points-allowed defense into a unit that literally cannot stop anyone when the game is on the line. Cardinals' 2025 season represents a masterclass in snatching defeat from the jaws of victory, at 2-4 with 4 consecutive losses by a combined 9 points. Arizona made NFL history as the first team ever to lose 3 consecutive games and walk-off scores. We talked about that already. They started 2-0, which was actually the first time since 2021, but obviously have imploded. Their playoff odds now sit at just 14.9%, with the season slipping away despite clear talent upgrades. Jonathan Gannon has implemented a dramatic culture transformation from the Cliff Kingsbury era. Players describe it as a culture shock, a detail-oriented, accountability-driven with clear non-negotiables. The regime focuses on professional dress codes, team-issued gear only allowed in facility, no eating in meetings, an emphasis on being on the clock at all times. Gannon's philosophy of character, accountability, and trust has resonated with players, ranking him 8th among NFL head coaches and NFLPA's player surveys, up from 15th in his rookie season. Players specifically praised him as highly receptive to locker room feedback, ranking 7th of 32 coaches in this category. The home versus away performance reveals intriguing splits. In 2024, Arizona finished 6-3 at home, best in the NFC West, but struggled on the road. In 2025, they're 1-1 at home, 1-3 away, with both road losses featuring blowing double-digit leads. Their lone road victory came at New Orleans, their first win in New Orleans since 1996, but they've proven unable to protect leads in hostile environments. The pattern suggests mental fragility rather than talent deficiency. Yikes. He said it, not me. It's not true, I said it. The injury situation has reached crisis level. We've already kind of covered that. Kyler Murray, obviously, is another one that wasn't talked about earlier, but clearly is a massive issue. Suffered a foot injury, possible Liz Frank, and missed week 6. Again, hopefully we'll have an update on that pretty soon here. Marvin Harrison Jr. suffered his second career concussion in week 6, remains questionable. Offensive line has also had injuries, including Will Hernandez, ACL. Defensive tackle Darius Robinson has been limited all season after calf issues. First-round pick Walter Nolan just activated from PUP list in week 7 after calf injury. I actually did see he's not going to be playing in this game, so kind of little sneak peek there. The Tennessee loss on October 5th crystallizes everything wrong with this team. After leading 21-3, the Cardinals surrendered 19 unanswered points to lose 22-21 to an 0-3 Titans team. Tennessee immediately fired the head coach the next week, meaning Arizona lost to a team so dysfunctional they blew it up the following day. The game featured Amari DiMercado's goal line fumble on what would have been a 70-plus yard touchdown, leading to Gannon's $100,000 fine for aggressive sideline confrontation. So far, despite the losing streak, the locker room remains intact with no public finger-pointing. Veterans like Calais Campbell provide leadership, quote-unquote, the kind of guy you want in your foxhole, according to teammates. Budda Baker sets defensive standards with his violent high-motor play. However, culture only matters if it translates to wins, and Gannon's seat is heating up at 14-26 overall. Moral victories and good vibes won't sustain a year 3 coach much longer. That is probably a benefit to having some veterans in there. There's a little bit less volatility with the locker room stuff. But even with veterans, at some point you're going to start losing guys. The necessary adaptations are obvious but haven't materialized. The offense has to manufacture explosiveness without its RB1, more shots downfield, better pre-snap motion to create advantages, and potentially more involvement of backup quarterback Jacoby Brissett, who threw 320 yards against Indianapolis. That's more than Murray threw in any game in 2025. The defense needs tighter coverage in crucial moments, potentially more man-to-man versus passive zone, and cannot allow teams to march 70 yards in the final 2 minutes. Philosophically, the team may need more aggression on fourth downs given how frequently they're in close games. The execution versus scheme debate tilts toward execution failures. The schemes aren't necessarily wrong. Gannon's defensive system showed elite performance in the final 11 games of 2024. Petzing's offensive scheme produced the second-best yards per carry in 2024. The talent exists, particularly after massive defensive investment. The issue is players and coaches failing to execute when the stakes are highest. The recent head-to-head history heavily favors Green Bay. In Week 6 of 2024 at Lambeau Field, the Packers dominated 34-13, jumping to a 24-0 lead before the Cardinals briefly cut it to 24-13 in the third quarter. Jordan Love threw 4 touchdowns, tying his career high on 22 of 32 passing for 258 with a 119.5 passer rating. The Packers controlled with a balanced offense, while the defense generated 3 fumbles and completely contained Kyler Murray, holding him to just 14 rush yards on 7 attempts. The Cardinals committed 13 penalties for 100 yards, uncharacteristic for a team that averaged 3.8 penalties per game in the year earlier in the season, and suffered 3 second-half turnovers that doomed any comeback hopes. Against NFC North opponents in 2024, the Cardinals went 1-2. They lost to Detroit 2013 at home. Packers handed them 34-13 beatdown. Their only victory came against the Chicago Bears 29-9, with the Cardinals rushing for 213 yards, but facing a Bears squad missing several starters, including Braxton Jones, Montez Sweat, Kyler Gordon, and Jaquan Brisker. The Cardinals will likely attempt to establish the run early with backup running backs featuring Trey McBride heavily with 8 to 10 targets in intermediate zones, use play action aggressively off run fakes, test deep shots to Marvin Harrison if he plays, to develop that connection, bring creative blitzes from disguised pressures, and show 3 high safety looks to limit explosive plays. The Packers' path is pretty straightforward. Establish Josh Jacobs early, attacking Arizona's weak run defense. Use play-action deep shots when the Cardinals load the box. Test the secondary deep with Watson and Dobbs. That's if Watson plays. When they show 3 high safety looks, keep Murray in the pocket with disciplined rush lanes and no scramble room if he plays. Attack the middle of the field versus linebackers in coverage, and win the time of possession battle to keep Murray cold on the sideline. All right, there you go. That's the Cardinals. For starters, why don't we go through the press conference? I don't have the official report yet, but this will enlighten us a little bit. By the way, can I just say real quick, fantastic Thursday night football game. Some vintage Aaron Rodgers in that game. That Hail Mary at the end was beautiful. As much as I was rooting for Cincinnati, both because it makes us look better if they win, and also we play the Steelers, so I'm a little nervous about them looking good. Not that that final play really makes that big of a difference. I was borderline hoping for him to nail that. And did anybody else notice that, like, I think it was DK just got alligator arms and was like, screw it, I don't feel like catching it. I feel like he was right there to catch it. I also had no idea what they were going to do because I was sitting there and I was watching it with my son, and he was all in on Rodgers going off. He was having a great time. I forgot the quote that he said. It was something, the old man still got it or something. Something to that effect. That wasn't how he phrased it, but we were both like, I mean, it felt like an old Packers game, like we all said. I mean, it was Rodgers in a shootout with no defense to help him out. He again has to watch his defense try to get him a win after all his heroics. They fail. He's given like 13 seconds to do something. And I'm thinking, maybe he's going to try to get that bomb. It's just enough time to maybe get you to like the 40-yard line with a deep toss to get outside or something. Instead, he's like, give me 6 more yards and I'll be in range to throw it. I didn't think he was going to get it there. I'm like, they're going to do this stupid lateral nonsense or something. This is going to be dumb. Dude, he launched a freaking 70-yard rocket. Did not think he still had it in him. And it should have been caught. I think DK should have had it. I don't know what he was doing. He jumped up and just like pulled his arms down like, oh, I'm scared. I don't know what to do. Anywho, great game. Packers head coach LaFleur says Devontae Wyatt is more than likely out for Sunday. For Christian Watson, his quote is, "We'll see." As of last night, Packers weren't anticipating McManus kicking today, per LaFleur. A little bit more on Watson. He says, "We'll see. We'll see how he gets through today." Matt LaFleur on Max Melton, Bo's younger brother. The more he plays, the better he gets. The one thing that stands out is his recovery speed is real. Both of those guys can fly, man. Those Melton boys. Cardinals head coach Gannon says they will not activate Walker Nolan, as I mentioned. Running back Emari DeMarcado also been ruled out. He's suffering from a bruised ego after the coach beat the crap out of him on the sideline. I'm kidding. I don't know what his problem is. Then when we actually got to practice, Devontae Wyatt and Lucas Van Ness not practicing, and again here inside the Hudson Center, both likely out for Sunday's game against Arizona. That definitely sucks with Lucas Van Ness. Probably would rather have Wyatt back just because we already have some edge guys and we don't really have any help on the inside, but sounds like we're going to get neither. Zach Tom and Anthony Belton are suited up again. Demovsky says Zach Tom practicing for the second straight day. Good sign he'll go on Sunday against the Cardinals. All right, folks. We got the injury report here, so why don't we go ahead and talk about it? Let's start with I guess we'll start with the Packers because it turns out the Cardinals aren't freaking done yet. Lazy jerks. This injury report, by the way, is just disgusting. The amount of names on here, even though a lot of them hopefully are going to be playing, it's terrible. Let me just read the list for effect. Aaron Banks, Anthony Belton, Warren Brinson, Matthew Golden, Nate Hobbs, Josh Jacobs, Brandon McManus, Jacob Monk, Jordan Morgan, Zach Tom, Lucas Van Ness, Christian Watson, Dontavian Wicks, and Devontae Wyatt. There's a lot of people banged up, man. Jordan Morgan should be good to go. He had a knee injury, was limited Wednesday, Thursday, full participant Friday. Matthew Golden apparently had a shoulder injury, but has been a full participant all week, so he's good to go. Warren Brinson, abdomen and neck, was a full participant all week. He's good to go. And Aaron Banks, groin and knee injury, limited all week, good to go. Anthony Belton has an ankle injury. He's been limited all week and is questionable. Nate Hobbs has a knee injury that apparently popped up on Friday. He was not on the injury report Wednesday or Thursday. He is questionable. Josh Jacobs is sick and has a calf injury. He was a full participant on Friday, which is a great sign, but is listed as questionable. Brandon McManus has not participated all week and is questionable, and I would say is pretty unlikely to play. Jacob Monk, hamstring, limited all week, questionable. Zach Tom has his oblique injury as well as a back injury. Didn't participate on Wednesday. He was limited Thursday, Friday, and is questionable. Dontavian Wicks has an ankle injury, was limited all week, and is questionable. On top of that, Lucas Van Ness has a foot injury, has not participated all week, and is out. Christian Watson has been limited all week and is out. Devontae Wyatt did not participate all week and is out. Now, real quick on Watson. He's going to have to be activated in the next week or so, 8 days, something like that. I don't think that guarantees he plays next week. If I'm not mistaken, like the day after that game, he has to be activated. Now, either way, they're going to activate him. That has to happen. It's a little frustrating that the situation came out the way that it did. As I said, they're kind of cutting it close, but, again, they're not going to just not activate him. So I guess they felt, who knows, maybe we'll get lucky and he'll be able to go. He's going to be put on the 53-man roster, and who knows how long this is going to take for him to fully heal. It now has me a little bit worried in terms of what's wrong. You know what I mean? I don't want him to be rushed back and put in a game where he's not necessarily ready or healthy, and he shows right back up, especially considering his injury histories. We need him to just play, man. We got to get him on the field. We can't have him out for, I don't know. He's got to start playing football for us. So we'll see how that goes, but he's not playing this week. I would the heck do I know? I would say there's a good chance for next week, but I don't know that either. We'll just have to see how that goes, but hopefully very soon. Remember, the initial assessment was around Halloween, and we're kind of just creeping up on right around when he was supposed to be back is when he's going to be back. All right, as for the Cardinals, they've also got a pretty extensive list here. We'll just go over, the guys that are of interest. Keaton Crawford, safety, ankle injury is questionable. Will Hernandez, knee injury, is questionable. Zay Jones, wide receiver, is questionable. Kyler Murray is listed as questionable. Darius Robinson, defensive tackle, is questionable. Walter Nolan is out. Amari DeMarcado, the running back, is also out. So we'll have to see. Obviously, the quarterback is going to be the biggest question. Don't have an answer on that yet, but probably for tomorrow we'll have some news. All right, I'm out of here. You all have a good rest of your day. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Have a good one. Bye-bye.